Hello and welcome back, and that is right, today we want to return to the subject of the Aoostar WTR Max. I've actually done a full review about this device. It's like 20 minutes long, and let's be realistic, you've got a busy life, so have I, and that's what today's video is about. This is our before you buy. I'm going to give you 5 reasons why this might be the perfect NAS for you, and 5 reasons why you might want to sit on the fence or look elsewhere. So without further ado, let's crack on with number 1. It may seem bloody obvious, but this thing is absolutely riddled in storage. You've got 6 SATA bays there based on the front. Again, you can get standard storage now on hard drives, 22, 24, even 26 TB. Also, the device has 4 M.2 NVMe's on that 7th bay. Each one of those can go up to 8 terabytes each, and there's even a base level M.2 NVMe as well. Now, the 6 SATAs there are feeding into the ASM1166 controller, which is providing 20 gigabits or 2 gigabytes per second pass through, and the M.2 there on the rear on 4x4. So there's no bottlenecking for that storage, at least when I was going through my testing. A huge amount of storage potential and the ability to add further storage via 10 gig USBs and an Oculink port, which you can take advantage of. Expansion devices like this one that allow you to add even more M.2 NVMe storage, or expansion devices as well. There's even USB 4, Thunderbolt 4 Type-C connections which allow you to add even more high performance storage to this. The sheer amount of base level storage on day 1 and day 1000 is near unbeatable for its scale. And talking of scale, this device, given the amount of storage inside, the design of it is absolutely mwah. The temperatures when we had this thing in operation, we did 4 different stages of tester with regards to 1 hour, 24 hour with 10 GBE running there. The temperatures were fantastic. Alongside that, when we were measuring the temperatures, we went ahead and looked at noise. This thing has 4 fans inside, 2 on the rear and 1 on the base and 1 on the CPU. And even with 4 fans in operation, this thing wasn't actually too noisy either. And that was with multiple different stages of fan operation. Then you've got power consumption. The power consumption, whether it is with no drives on idle, taking advantage of just hard drives, taking advantage of just SSDs, or full gunning it, fully populated with media and 2 10 gig connections. This has 10 gig, by the way. It still wasn't that egregious. It wasn't low, but it wasn't out of this world. It never broke into the triple figures. Ultimately, for this amount of design philosophy in such a compact box, it's amazing it's managed to maintain those power levels, the power consumption, heat generation, and low noise for such an abundantly storage-rich device. You'd be amazed that devices like this that have got this amount of storage often never arrive with support of real ECC memory. They sometimes have DDR5, but they claim it's ECC, but DDR5's on-die ECC is not the full deal. It's about the data passing through and checks at the beginning and the end, not just on the disk. I'm pleased to say this supports ECC, and although the base level model at 699 doesn't feature ECC, you can install ECC memory on this up to 96 gig, by the way. And if you go through the different purchase tiers, you can add ECC automatically or by your own. This is an unusual one, but I do think it's worth touching on because it's not actually that common, and that is this system has a customizable LCD panel there on the front. Now, a lot of NASs have LCDs that allow you to just, see the time, see the IP, see the system health and temperature and that, but this is very, very customizable. Right the way down to the image you can have there in the background, the different variables for CPU, GPU, memory, upload, download, temperatures, network performance, network IPs, and errors. You can configure it in a completely customizable fashion to the image, to the actual positioning of all of the different variables on the LCD screen. We're going to come back to the subject of it, but I really wanted to touch on the uniqueness of this feature. That CPU, the AMD Ryzen 7 8845HS Pro. This CPU inside here, we got to talk about it. Base clock at 3.8, it can go up to 5.1. It arrives with 8 cores and 16 threads to play with. It also has 780M integrated graphics that go up to 2.7 gigahertz when needed. It's, that CPU has got 20 lanes of Gen 4 architecture to play with, and it does a great job. Whether it is you're going to be running virtual machines, machines. We deployed multiple virtual machines with Proxmox in our review, and it ran like a charm. If it's come to multimedia, then I'm pleased to tell you that when we did our testing with a 200 megabits per second 4K file, a 400 megabits per second 4K file, an 8K file being transcoded and alongside those first two, as well as a native 8K, all running at once, this CPU just dipped into 40%. That still what gave us 60% CPU utilization to play with when we were hammering this with 4 of the heaviest multimedia files I own. Ultimately, this is a great choice of CPU here, its capability, and ultimately allows you to really make the most of the hardware architecture and the storage architecture in this comparatively compact box. But it ain't all perfect. Let's talk about the things about this device that might rub you up the wrong way. I said I'd come back to it. That LCD panel, for all of its feature set, I will say it is finicky, at least right now at the time of recording. In order to get in and customize it, it's actually on its own dedicated IP. So you have to tap in with a very specific IP in order to configure it and upload customized LCD plates. It arrives with a client application that you can use to do this semi-automatically, but ultimately if you don't have direct access to that IP on your network, because you may have a very complicated multi-layered network in your home or office environment, or you don't really want to play around with your local IPs too much and start buggering up connections, this can be annoying. Also, on top of that, the application itself at the moment is not Microsoft signed, and they're going through the process of doing that right now, but the result is that if you want to use it, some web browsers and some antivirus software actually flags it because it's not certified, or it doesn't have the certificate there. So the result is that when you do download it, you may get a bit of a jarring feeling that it is virus. It isn't. We've checked it. I got the file and scanned it myself, but still nonetheless, for those less in the know, it will be somewhat jarring. Do you remember earlier when I said this device had 10 GBE? That's true. The device has 2 times 2.5 GBE and 2 times 10 gig NICs there on the rear. However, these are fiber SFP. They are not traditional copper. Now, this might not be a problem for you. In fact, some of the points I'm going to raise at this half of the video might not be problems for you, but they might be for others. Think of this as your for your information section of the video. And right now, there are going to be users that don't really understand the limitations that fiber can bring to smaller network operations. Number one, you are going to need to get hold of transceivers in order to take advantage of these. Now, you can work around that. You can get shorter cables known as DAC, which have the transceivers attached, but it's still going to work out more expensive than getting, normal copper Ethernet cables or RJ45. Now, others of you may raise that you can get adapters like this one that allow you to add standard copper cabling and attach it to SFP, and it's true, you can use these. However, 2 of these side by side, these generate a lot of heat, so it's not ideal. Bottom line, if you're looking at this device for an active, maybe editing video workflow, keep in mind that those 10 GBEs are fiber, not copper, and if you're going to use adapters, they can get quite hot. This is another big for your information. This doesn't have any operating system. Now, there's going to be some of you going, well, of course not. Obviously. Seriously, lots of people do not know that these days, that when they buy these devices, that it has no operating system. Now, we are seeing changes to that. We're seeing a lot more devices rolling out thanks to things like FNOS that allow smaller NAS brands or even mid-tier NAS manufacturers to include an operating system, but this doesn't have it. This doesn't have Unraid True NAS, OpenMedia Vault, any of that. And depending on the operating system you choose to use, you may lose out on one of those storage bays. Now, if you go for something like Unraid, you can use a USB key like this that loads it into the RAM, and therefore you're not going to lose one of your storage drives. But something like TrueNAS, something like OpenMedia Vault need one of your SSDs to host the OS. There is no small eMMC module inside there to store the OS. So just keep in mind, this does not include an operating system. Returning to the rear of the box, this doesn't have any PCIe upgrade slots. It's very compact. You can definitely tell they've tried to go for a more compact, feature-rich device. But I'll say that lack of PCIe is going to be a bit of a blow to some of you. Now, there are obviously going to be others of you that are going to go, wait a minute, This got Oculink on board, and you're right, Oculink can be used to add storage expansions. It can be used to add external GPUs. Ultimately, there are ways and means to take advantage of Oculink to expand your device similarly to that of PCIe upgrades. However, keep in mind these are nowhere near as convenient. A number of them need their own additional power supply to run those external devices, and some of you that may be thinking, oh, I'm going to get it now and scale up towards 25 gig or 40 gig cards down the road. Fine, you can do that with Oculink to PCIe upgrades, but keep in mind you're going to need to supply your own power. So if you know more about your scalability and think PCIe cards are going to happen down the road, just keep in mind this requires Oculink expandability, not traditional PCIe. Our last for your information is this. This thing has an absolutely huge power brick. To put it into perspective, it is quite large, even in comparison to this device. It's a 280 watt external power brick there. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of you that go, I don't mind, I'm buying this for being compact. But nevertheless, there are users out there that are less keen on big chunky power bricks that might accidentally fall off the edge of a counter and disconnect the device. External power bricks are very, very convenient to replace. They're a lot easier to replace and keep a spare on a shelf than internal PSUs that may well require a lot more dismantling to get inside, even something small like a Flex one. But nonetheless, just be aware that this device can only be purchased with an external PSU, and that is a big 280 watt PSU that if you need to buy another one, these don't come cheap. But there you go, that is the Aoostar WTR Max. Remember, we've done the full video that's much longer than this and goes into way more detail about everything, and I'll link to it below. But I hope you found this much more short form version very helpful. If you are interested in getting hold of one of these, there are links in the description as well as a link to the written review. If you are going to get hold of this, and if those stores below are ones that you're going to go to anyway, please use those links. It allows us, me and Eddie, just us at NAS Compares, to keep doing what we do because we get a small commission from every purchase from anything purchased there. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.